Imagine knowing exactly what your students are learning and exactly which steps you need to take next.
Join us in Down with the Reading Quiz to craft meaningful and productive formative assessments that move away from gotcha moments of basic recall and toward assessing what your students actually can do.
In this 30-minute free masterclass, we'll share 3 powerful assessment keys that work for any novel at any time of the year.
Head to shop.bravenewteaching.com/masterclass to sign up, and we'll also send you a free workbook to keep track of all your notes.
Once again, that's shop.bravenewteaching.com/masterclass to nail formative assessments forever.
Hey there, Brave New Teaching community. Before we get into this episode today, Amanda and I wanted to make a quick little statement because we made a slip up in episode 156 of the podcast where we were debriefing Amanda's interview with author Shamile Mendez. We were talking about different ideas for units and lessons, and we were talking about using the film Juno as a supplement for a possible unit that we were brainstorming. And we accidentally dead named the main actor, Elliot Page, in Juno. And so we wanted to stop what we were doing, make sure that we addressed it, make sure that we apologize for anyone who was offended, felt harm by us, by our negligence. Really, it was an oversight and we need to pay better attention.
And we wanted to make sure that we did that as soon as possible. We will also be editing the footage so that it is corrected and all set. And we just want to once again apologize for the oversight. It is kind of the nature of our very conversational style of podcasting is sometimes we kind of get talking and we miss things, and we apologize for doing that. And we are going to continue to learn, know better, do better moving forward on the podcast as always. And we again hope that if anyone wants to reach out and speak to us specifically about the issue, you know our inbox is always open, bravenewteaching@gmail.com.
Absolutely. And we want to say thank you to our listeners who alerted us to our mistake so that we could get on it and do right as best we could, as quickly as we could. All right, everybody, let's get into the show. Well, hello and welcome back to Brave New Teaching, and welcome back to camp, everybody. It is still, if you are listening to this in real time, we are in Camp Brave New Teaching, and you are listening to one of our debriefs of one of our author interviews, and it is in a whole summer series. If you're listening to this outside of that time, you are still welcome to feel the summer camp vibes no matter where you're at. Hi, Amanda.
Hello, Marie. Hi, listeners. We're so happy you're here. These have become some of my favorite episodes to record, TBH.
Oh, 100%. We just like the sounds of our own voices because, well, we're high school English teachers. So.
Okay, but of all the things that we're going to yammer on about.
Exactly. Yes.
I love that we gave ourselves space to like properly debrief these interviews, because if no one wants to hear it, they can skip it. Like that's totally fine. But sure. I think when you're in it, when we're in it in the interview, I do have lots of thoughts many, many hours later. So I'm really glad that we are doing this.
I am too. And it's fun. And it kind of just lets our audience hear from a couple of teachers who, I mean, we've got quite a bit of experience under our belts, and we talk a lot about our methods and our strategies, and then we are just going to employ them, right? Like right here in the moment. It's just for everybody listening. We don't do a ton of pre-planning, especially for episodes like this, where we are really just like brainstorming. And it's basically us showing how we collaborate as curriculum designers and as instructors. So yeah, like if you missed our debrief of our 2-part interview with Ruta Sepetys, we basically did our unit makeover. That's something that you are interested in. Head to the show notes. First of all, just head to the show notes period, because we have all sorts of things linked in the show notes always. But we have a free unit makeover. It's a series of emails that you get that takes you through a lot of the pieces of the puzzle that we were talking about today. And so we decided when we were getting ready to debrief this time from last week's interview that why not just go through the same sort of a process and like legitimately, how would we use this text in a classroom? I think that that's the most helpful.
Well, because it's one thing for y'all to listen to the interview and be inspired. Like, that's wonderful. But then this is where Marie and I turn on that practical side of what we do at the podcast, which is in real life, what does this look like? Or what could this look like? Because that's the next step. We didn't want to just have a wonderful summer of author interviews. I mean, that's goals. That's amazing in and of itself. But, for our tired teacher brains that so badly want fresh inspiration, sometimes that's all we have room for. So Marie and I are just going to tick the notches a couple more forward into the process of the planning part of everything.
Right. Well, and for the kind of snarky teachers out there like myself that go, that's cool. And then this is what you do. This is it. This is the ellipse. This is what's coming. So, and we are so excited that Amanda had a chance to sit down with Shamile Saeed Mendez and talk about her amazing YA novel, Furia. And we are so excited to dig in because we have 2 really good ideas for you. That's the extent of our prep, is 2 ideas, 2 different avenues of where you could go with this in a classroom, especially like a high school classroom. But first, before we get into more of her credentials and everything, you know what we need to do? Cue the music.
You're listening to Brave New Teaching, and we are so much more than a podcast.
We give teachers the inspiration, support, and tools to challenge the status quo.
I'm Amanda, and I'm a former English teacher from Illinois.
And I'm Marie, and I'm a teacher from Southern California.
Join us at bravenewteaching.com to find out more about our courses, festivals, and get every episode's show notes.
We're so glad you're here. Enjoy the show. All right, friends. So Shamile Saeed Mendez is a pretty amazing. I mean, if you missed that interview, you should pause this now and go back and listen to the interview from last week and then come back to this, because you have to hear a lot of her experience from her own voice. I mean, it's everything that we talked about when we did a lot of deep dives into biography and memoir, right? It's one thing to hear somebody's story. That's their actual story. And it's something completely different to hear it from them, to hear it in their voice and in their words, and hearing about her young adulthood and coming to the United States, in college. And I was just oh my gosh, I thought I was a fish out of water when I started college, and I was literally 20 minutes away from my house. So I would come home on the weekends and do laundry and then go back to school. But I use air quotes to say that. I didn't go to a whole nother country. And this is it's phenomenal. And I don't know. I'm stepping all over you, Amanda. What were you going to say?
You are not at all. I think when I think about our goals for this summer, again, if you're listening in real time, we're kind of building these authors layer by layer. If you're listening to this at some other time, or you just came here because you heard about this maybe on Shamile's website or something like that, we have just such this beautiful round perspective of books and authorship to share with you this summer. And I think Shamile's point of view, coming as an author that was born and raised outside of the US in Argentina, her first language was Spanish. She learned English. She, similar to Ruta, didn't really take up writing professionally until after becoming a mother, later in her life. I feel so professionally inspired by her as a writer. And then educationally from her books, I think we're just so lucky to have gotten the chance to just have these special people all kind of side by side together. Because when we look at Shamile now with the context of what we talked about with Ruta, it's even more interesting than just kind of having these isolated author interviews.
Yes, absolutely. And and even going back to when we were introducing this whole series a few episodes ago, a good handful of episodes ago, and really what we're looking for in bringing diverse and just fresh voices into our classrooms, which is something you and I have talked about for as long as we've talked, right? Is just the opportunity for our students to hear from people who are not just different from them, but also our students who don't get to hear from people who are like them, that don't get to have those mirrors. Seeing it all come to light and seeing it really happen in real time is very rewarding as a teacher and as a mom of 2 kids going through school. And I am completely in awe of these women and just not just the turn and pivot into a completely different career than where your life was trajectory was going, but to do so with such grace and I don't know, just find your people in it, or maybe it's us finding them. I don't know. I'm excited to talk about this book and classroom application.
Well, I mean, Furia is such a perfect, I think, let's talk about the book. I mean, we love Yumile. She talks so much about her journey in her episode, and I loved that. And if you are fans of YA books, like if you love The Poet X or you loved I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter, this is definitely in that same vein. We're not assuming that you've read this at this point. We're assuming that you're interested, and we're going to give you that application.
Right.
And this book is a Reese Witherspoon's YA book club winner, people. A Goodroids. That's not right.
That too.
Goodreads.
Is it a bad Roids? Goodreads.
It might be after this interview. I don't know.
We'll see.
A Goodreads choice nominee. I mean, it got a lot of attention in 2020, which might explain why maybe some of us missed it.
Yeah. There were a couple things going on at that point. Yes.
A few things. And I know I missed it around that first go around. I miss everything when it's new. Like, I don't really read anything.
No, that's because you're a punk. It's because you go, oh, everybody likes it. I won't.
Yeah, I'm a punk.
Yeah. Oh, I won't like it at all because I'm badass.
Yeah, and then I freaking love this book because it's everything I love. There are really four major components, I would say, to the plot in Furia. So there is, and if you're thinking about this from the standpoint of, is this something that would look good in my classroom library? Is this something for a choice novel? Is this for a whole class? We're going to talk about whole class, but the premise is this, right? Furia, Camila is her name. We'll call her Camila. Her nickname is Furia. That's her nickname she's given on her soccer team. And she is living and being raised in Rosario, Argentina, outside of Buenos Aires, and suburban-ish. And in her world, she is obsessed with all things soccer. I mean, it is her dream. She's on a team, but she's doing all of that in secret because it is not approved of by her parents. Her parents very much want her to become a doctor, pursue English, all her studies, go do the school thing. And so she's playing without them knowing. So, and she's really good. I mean, she's super, super talented. So she's kind of got this secret event and secret talent. There is, of course, the sports stuff that's going on. So soccer in general is a massive part of this book, but not so much that it's going to turn off kids who don't care about sports. It's not like every chapter is a play-by-play of a game. There are handfuls of descriptions of games. The other soccer layer is that her love interest is a soccer stud. He's actually so good. He was recruited to play in Italy. He's playing on Juventus in Italy, like pro ball.
Listen, I love a good love interest. Like, I am that girl that you give me just any sort of a really strong protagonist, give them a love interest where there's some sort of conflict. And basically, I'm just giving you the plot of every romantic comedy period. I'm here for it.
Oh my gosh. Well, and so you've got a strong female protagonist here who is very uncomfortable with the love thing because they have this kind of childhood, they're playful friends first kind of a experience. They had something sort of romantic once before he left, but he left. He went to go pursue his dream because men and boys with a soccer dream go do that. And that's what he was supposed to do. But he does come back and, it's like, well, what do we do? You play in Italy. And she's like, yeah, I want to lean into this, but I'm also like, not that stupid. So she is tough, Camila. And I love that about her. And then at the very, if that's not enough layers, there's also this layer of the women's movement going on in Argentina. There's a pretty dark history of disappearances and really rough coups and governments and people taking over. At this point, there are a lot of women going missing in Argentina, and that is based on real history.
Remind me the year that this takes place.
It's modern.
It's contemporary, right? Okay.
Yeah, maybe mid 2000s, maybe the 90s. If I were to pinpoint,
I would I kind of got the feeling that it's closer to the 10s, the 2010s,
maybe
teens even. Okay,
teens even. I mean, she definitely doesn't date it,
right?
But at least that I can remember. But that's definitely my worst thing. I can never remember details like that. And then
Me neither, final obviously.
Kind of and then then if we circle back a little bit, another layer, we've got also her role in her family of not only having this secret about soccer, but she's also trying to end this like cycle of abuse in her family because her dad, he's been abusive toward her mom and to her his whole life. And so there's this cycle of abuse. You know, mom doesn't really say anything or stand up for herself. And she talks a lot about how generations of women have been just taking it forever in her family. And so she is dealing with some generational trauma. I mean, it is, so this is why I don't normally like YA, is I don't normally get to talk about all these layers.
Yeah.
And it's written so approachably that students are going to love it, but it's got the layers for discussion that make it, for me, this is whole class novel worthy.
But this is the YA that, I mean, well, no, we all know, if you've been around the podcast for a minute, you know that some of the YA I like is fantasy, but it has these layers. And I know that some people can't get past the label of YA, or they can't get past, like, for my cup of tea is definitely fantasy. It's people with wings and fangs, but there's still these authors that are coming out in the YA sphere have so many amazing things to say. Yes. And they're saying it through their stories. And this is no exception to that. This story says so much, and it's really phenomenal. This episode is brought to you by Curriculum Rehab, by us, the team here at Brave New Teaching. It is the first and only teacher PD of its kind, a course to help teachers like you by guiding you through creating your own personal framework for curriculum. You make it work for you, your students, and your unique situation, because nobody else knows what the kiddos in your classroom need the way that you do. Curriculum Rehab takes all of the resources available to you, all of the lessons, the assessments, the activities, all of the texts, everything that could possibly be there for you, and it helps you organize what you actually need in order to attain your teaching objectives. These are the strategies that Amanda and myself have used in our own classrooms, have developed over very long years of teaching and figuring things out, combined together to create this framework and these strategies that we can guide you through. This course will give you the tools you need for a complete curriculum overhaul, or to start from scratch. Wherever you are on that continuum, it does it all for you and with you on your timeline. So start today, do a little bit more in a couple of months, and then pick it up next summer. It's Teacher PD the way it should be, on your own time. Head to curriculumrehab.com/course for more information, or just head to the show notes for this episode. We cannot wait to see you there. It's finally time to take control of what goes on in your own classroom and create the curriculum of your dreams. All right, let's get back into the show. Okay, so we've got basically our ideas here, our bookend ideas of the high school experience. We've got one idea, which is, I think, going to hit the nail on the head for quite a few of you out there. And it's for the two of us, for a 9th grade idea anyways. And then our other idea is looking at something that I think is more 12th grade, and I think Amanda agrees is more of a 12th grade angle. And yeah, which one do you want to start with?
Let's start with the 9th grade. Let's start with our youngins. Okay,
let's go with our youngins. So generally speaking, you've heard us talk quite a bit on this podcast about To Kill a Mockingbird, about other books from the canon, but specifically Mockingbird. We have talked a lot about things that you can teach in place of To Kill a Mockingbird in a unit that looks at coming of age, right? Not everybody has the choice of what they can do, right? Sometimes it's like you will teach a unit that is To Kill a Mockingbird, and then you have to do the curriculum rehab style of how am I going to do this to make it true to me? And so Amanda had the phenomenal idea to take Furia and pair it with To Kill a Mockingbird. And I just can't get over how cool I think that is.
I also would say, I think the other one that came to mind for me was also Catcher.
Sure. See, that one for me is an 11th grade text.
It's 10th by us, yeah.
Is it 10th? Okay.
Sometimes 11th too, but either way, I think that both of those are typically used similarly for coming of age. And I think the voices couldn't be more different. And that for me is like golden ticket when it comes to discussion. We have these opposing views, seemingly.
I was going to say, yeah, but then at the same time, you take Scout Finch and you look at a girl in a man's world,
Yep.
And it does that, or does that not describe what you just described to a certain extent with soccer? Like,
yes.
And her home life, and like all of these different, you can compare. Okay. I'm getting ahead of us right now. I'm getting ahead of us. When we talk, pull it back, zip it up, lock it in for a minute here. When we talk about curriculum, we start with the end in mind, and we talk about asking questions. So I see this as in the 9th grade, the skills that I'm looking for as a teacher, I'm looking for character analysis. Yep. I'm looking for theme analysis, right? So there are some like reading skills. And then with writing, I'm looking for a straight up lit analysis paper. Like truly, I know it's not that fancy. I know it's not all of the 1-pager things and like the projects I like to talk about. Like legit, I want 5 paragraphs out of a kid, and I want it to be a deep dive character analysis, or I want it to be a deep dive, probably not theme, character. Because I want to see what can you do and what can you write.
Even a genre analysis would do a lot of those same things.
Sure.
Because potentially you're kind of past character, maybe, right? Like maybe you tackled character earlier in the year and you're ready for something else. I think looking at just the tropes of the genre of coming of age and what kinds of style techniques are most appropriate and most commonly used in that genre sets you up for a really nice lit analysis paper or a lit analysis timed write of some sort, if that's what you want to do. Because if you have 2 authors tackling the same genre, but we've got 2 totally different stories, that's the thread is going to be author's craft.
Sure.
Right? How does, right? I mean, that's kind of how I would do with a dystopia, same thing. And I think that's what makes it so fun is all of a sudden this author's craft ends up being a tool. Author's craft gives us the thread actually between 2 totally different things. So I'll be more specific. Author's craft. Let's talk about point of view, right? So maybe if we already know a lot about how characterization works, maybe now the next step is to look at point of view and narration. And both of these stories are told from the point of view of the person coming of age. So now we have this like next layer. I don't know if I'm going too deep into that, but that's what I'm thinking with when you say skills.
No, you're not at all. I don't think you're going too deep into that at all. I think we might want to take a pause now, though, to start talking about the essential question. Like, I think now is a good time because we've talked about theme. We've talked about some skill stuff. I've talked about, like, I really do want a paper out of this. Like, I want to go through and make this a really good, like, if I'm thinking about product, because when I think about summative, it's skills and the what. I want this to be a process piece where we go through, we do a lot of peer review. Like this has what it takes because it's so approachable and so layered, right?
Yes.
That you can do that. So let's make character just a small piece of the pie and instead look at the bigger genre of it all.
Yeah.
Where's your head?
They're connected.
No, absolutely. They're connected. Well, and like, I mean, there's a reason that so many of us do coming of age in 9th grade because they are like, sweet little special balls of sweat and hormones.
So speaking of hormones, no, just kidding. When we talk about EQs and literary analysis, I would like to make the caveat at this moment of to interrupt our programming to make a statement. Sometimes EQs and lit analysis don't work together. Sometimes when Marie and I talk about EQs are meant to drive instruction mostly thematically through a line of reasoning through a unit. So occasionally the EQ as worded sometimes doesn't work exactly for the lit analysis skills that we're doing. So I want to give everyone full permission to occasionally like split those 2. There are lots of times where I'll give a really heavily skills based analysis assessment and then also an EQ. So like an example would be, we're going to do a seminar on the EQ, but you're going to do a timed write on this very nuanced skill.
So for instance, right now I am finishing up a unit on relationships with that uses the novel Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. And so this is my 10th grade class, like in tomorrow they're working on their final. It's 2 pieces. One is a personal narrative memoir, because we started the term with memoir, if you guys remember me talking about choice memoir, all that. So exactly to Amanda's point, it's a 2-parter. And then they have a creative project where they're presenting their analysis of the story in like response to the essential question. And they're bringing in all the close reads and things that we've done. We've done a lot of creative assignments to like look at tone and mood and blah, blah, blah. And that addresses the essential question. Whereas the like actual writing is skills. It's narrative.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So permission to do that. A lot of people
Exactly.
ask me that,
yes.
So like I've fused them before. Like my American dream question, I usually do fuse. Like I'll ask, is the American dream more likely to inspire or destroy? And then
because I use your question. Yes.
and then I ask, and how does Fitzgerald use style to depict this? Right. So you've picked one or the other. What are the style techniques that show you destruction or show you inspire?
Right.
So like it's possible to marry them. But all that is to say, the EQ that I love with coming of age is this. How do we know when childhood ends and adulthood begins? It's a very hard question.
It's so sweet. I don't know. There's something so sweet about that because I just freaking love these kids. And like, you just watch them like straddling the line, not even straddling the line, bouncing back and forth like just metronome, boom, 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 back and forth between.
They're so cute. And I think that kind of a question to me is better suited for a summative that's more of a discussion or as a synthesis. And so depending on what you need to get out of it, you can let that sit and then do a lit analysis on narration, character, point of view, tone, mood, whatever you want to do. Or you can ask a different question. But I really like that EQ.
I do too. Here's the deal. You can start, like you and I also really like to do things where you start a summative that's individual with discussion. So like, why couldn't you start with a synthesis, like seminar on the question and just talk about when do you know? How do you know? And then make it more applicable specifically to the novel if they're doing some sort of analysis. Like, when does this character come of age? What is the moment?
Find the scene and then do a literary analysis of that scene. Done.
Yes. I love it. Okay, so let's talk. So for those of you who are newer to the podcast, when we are talking through units like this, we call it our unit makeover. This is also a small part of our larger curriculum rehab, which is our course that teaches our entire process. So we start with the end, right? We're talking skills, we're talking summative, we're talking product, which is the summative. Sorry, I hear myself. And then we move all the way backwards to the big question. The next thing we really like to talk about, and we also like to create a vision board. We are going to get you started on that and make like a little, we're going to do the beginning for you of some of the stuff we would put on a vision board. So some of the things you're hearing here, you'll see if you want to, again, head to the show notes and you can download that for free. Just to like starting off point. Let's think of a couple of supplemental texts that we would use. And then let's talk through our other idea.
Oh yeah. I almost forgot about our other idea.
I know, I did as well. Yes. Supplemental texts I see are like, I mean, there's so much poetry, much poetry and spoken word that could be used here. But I also really like songs just about identity and about figuring out who you are and being lost and having students bring in their own songs that really speak to them for where they're at. Yeah. I think it'd be really great.
Even though I was an athlete growing up, I don't watch a lot of sports movies, but there are lots of a lot of kids come of age through sports. And I can't give you a specific one right now because I'll sound really idiotic if I say it wrong. But
please say Cool Runnings. Please, for the love of everything, say cool.
I will not
feel the rhythm, feel the rhyme, please.
Wow. Wow. Cool Runnings could work as a supplement.
It could not. They're all adults. It's
all right. Why? Okay.
But like,
see, now I'm like, have I seen Cool Runnings correctly?
No, I'm just being a butt. But no, you're right. Like there are. Yes, the Sandlot. That's it. Forever. Unit over.
Forever. I think that would be so fun. And I think that too, just looking at, like you said, poetry is beautiful. There's going to be places to do, I've done with Mockingbird, actually. I gotta find it. I had this YouTube video a long time ago. I don't know if it got taken down, but there are great videos that break down some of the tropes of genre with examples from coming of age films. Juno's a great one, actually.
Juno's fantastic.
Now, yeah, Juno just came to me. I forgot about Juno almost.
We don't talk about Juno. Do you like what I did there?
Wow. I guess, yes, that's actually pretty good. I'm not mad about that. But looking at, having like something at the beginning that breaks apart the genre a little bit into component parts,
Sure.
and then finding films and short stories and examples that go with those parts would be a place that I would start.
Well, and I think that those are really good. It used to, like in yesteryear, when I just had a different vibe in the classroom, and a lot of this is students coming off of their the bulk of their early adolescence being online. COVID just really shifted things. I wouldn't have to supplement as heavily when it came to talking about coming of age, because they would be more open to talking about their own experience. And it's just not the case anymore. So having more places that are commonly understood among us all, because we watch them together, we listen to the supplements really do aid in that conversation. And then students will access their own reflection, like on themselves, more often. For me anyways, I am noticing that they are doing it more often in individual writing and like individual conversations. But like even the conversations are hard to come by. It's mostly in writing, and it's quiet and it's reflective on their own outside of the class. It's just an interesting shift I've seen. And I do wonder if it'll come back to the way it used to be or not, but supplements help.
This one might be overtaught, but I think Oranges by Gary Soto would be perfect.
Even if they've seen it before, who cares? Yeah. Then they already know a little bit about it, and they can just get deeper into the theme and text. It's fine. It's
such a sweet, innocent,
little. It is poem. A good one. I know it is a good one. Okay, let's talk through kind of quickly. We won't go as in depth as we did this one, but the other idea that we have is for 12th grade. So I teach an English course called Ethnic Literature, and it is a 12th grade course, and it looks at identity, power, systems, oppression, and resistance. Those are our 5 units. Boom, boom, boom. And how they intersect with each other. And one of the first things that we talk about is intersectionality and the different pieces of a person and a person's identity. Everybody is so much more than the sum of all of those. They are the intersecting points of all of those pieces of who they are. And so I think that this would work brilliantly there.
Yes.
Talk through what you were saying before, though. Yes, this book is for that class. And the beauty of it is, by the time they're in 12th grade, you might be thinking to yourself, I should give them something that is more literary and challenging. First of all, this is literary through the teeth, but it's also something you don't have to give them War and Peace simply because they're in 12th grade. Instead, you can just take the training wheels completely off and say, here you go. They don't need you at that point to understand. They need you to help dig deeper. And that's why a book like this absolutely fits in the 12th grade.
And what I went on and on and on about the layers of Furia at the beginning of this episode, because I love the layers of Furia. Like Marie said, this is the chance to say so my thought, I'll start there. My thought was to do this book with a research unit, because this would be a wonderful, like, unifying starting place. Whenever we do research, I feel like where we always would fall apart would be how different everyone seems to be in what they're doing.
Sure.
And so, like, the better I got at teaching research, the more I was able to create a unit that had unifying parts, whether we were all researching, the same general era, or we were all researching, right? I kind of had these pieces at the beginning, and then I had an EQ, and we were all researching under an EQ together. And it was really nice to be able to hold hands, even though we're going in different directions.
Right. But you're all still kind of casting the same net, or you're within the same net. I don't know. I think I lost the metaphor.
No. But that's the idea, right? Is that there are so many creative ways to take an angle, but we all do have to come back to this same conversation. So I think this is a great book to say, hey, we're all going to start here. Everyone's going to read Furia. You have 5 days. Go. This is going to be the starting point of our conversation about equal pay in sports, or something, I mean, that's kind of my first place because it's the most on the surface there of this conversation. But in the novel, Furia talks at length about the different expectations between men and women. So there's the gender component by itself. Forget the sports.
It's just a great gender studies moment.
But I love that women's soccer. I mean, yeah, she talks about women's soccer, and like one of her goals is to come play in the U.S. on a women's soccer team. And being in the U.S. and looking at women's soccer, it's easy to see that like women's soccer dominates the world in terms of their talent and their competitive edge. And that's for, I mean, still a lot of reasons, right? Like there's still the amount of oppression in women's sports is astronomical in other places, but it's certainly not absent here either.
No, but it is interesting to see how, far we have come in the States. And yet when we really think about it as to self-identifying women, it doesn't feel that equal.
Especially in sports. You know, like there's a documentary I was just watching the other day on HBO about women's soccer and just how much women have had, and this has happened in the WNBA, this has happened in lots of women's sports, but women having to put up and shut up because the industry is run by men, even though they're on this women's team and they have women's soccer. Congratulations, you have it.
Aren't you happy?
Well, aren't you happy already? You've won all these trophies. Well, right. So that it doesn't end there. So I think an investigation into sports, it sounds to me like a very cool senior level diversion from what we normally do in ELA. And like that for our experience is almost always what seniors are up to. We actually have had a sports literature class run.
Well, that's cool.
At both of the schools that I've taught actually. So this would work really, really well there and giving a foundational, like a place to start.
I could see kids starting there and those who are into it looking at sports, but I could see kids just looking at any and every industry and looking at pay, like wage disparities.
Love it.
Yeah. Amongst male, female, non-binary, right? Like looking at what happens and looking for trends. And I think it could be very interesting to do a whole gender lens analysis of wages in XYZ industries. Very
and
cool.
I thought about too women's gymnastics and what was going on in training rooms and
the Olympics. Look at the Olympics. Full stop, right? Yeah.
Full stop. So again, cool. Another reason that you love a book like this and why we want to elevate these texts for you all here on the podcast is because even if you use it once one way, you can turn around the next year and use the same book a completely different way with a different group of kids and get something totally new out of it.
Absolutely. So friends, make sure that you, first of all, if you've not already joined us for Camp BNT and you are listening this summer, come on in. The water's fine. We have a completely free Facebook group for you. Head to the show notes so that you can sign up and get in on this conversation in real time. And if you're listening to this outside of Camp BNT, like if we're all done and gone, never fear, we will still have ways for you to join the conversation. So head to the show notes, make sure that you download the, your start. Basically, it's like your vision board starter. We're getting a little bit of it done for you so that then you can take it and run. We'll have some links to you on more of what we're talking about when it comes to a vision board if you want to do our unit makeover challenge, etc. Yeah, but again, thank you so much to Shamile for taking the time to come on the podcast and to participate in this larger conversation of bringing more contemporary and just more voices into our classrooms. We absolutely love authors, especially authors like her.
And she, if you are also, just as a FYI, I think you probably heard it in the interview, but she's written quite a bit for middle grade already. Yes. So if Furia feels like it's maybe a little too mature for your students, if you're a middle school teacher, check out her middle grade books. And then adult books, she wrote Twice Upon a Quinceañera. It's such a cute adult romance book. So it's not adult romance. That came out wrong. It's in the romance genre, but not like the Harlequin genre. It's not that anyone here her as judging because we don't care.
No, I mean, I talked about the people with wings. Let's be honest.
But so she's got such a range. Yeah. So give Shamilia a shout out from us. If you read something else from her, check her out on her Goodreads, on her own bio, her own website. There's lots to see about her and the other books that she has to offer our wonderful world of readers.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, friends, for joining us today for this little interview, debrief, and unit brainstorm. Make sure you head to the show notes. Again, I know I keep saying it, but I feel like it bears repeating because there's always so many goodies there.
Get over
there. We will see you next time. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
Thanks again for listening to Brave New Teaching.
We'd love to keep the conversation going over on Instagram.
And while you're there, check out the links in our bio for the most up-to-date events going on in the Brave New Teaching community.
Thanks for being here and have a great week at school.